The day I got expelled from school, the whole village said I was finished wasted 4 years and ended up as a courier making 3,000 a month. Not until a temple fair, when a statue of a deity fell on my head, did Lord Ma's third eye merge with me. From that day on, I could see through antiques and fakes at a glance, and see through people's hearts. The legend of Jiangzhou's antique world began the moment I was hit and landed in the hospital. After hanging up the phone, I felt dazed. My dad called to say my cousin was getting married, and I had to go back. My uncle had called a few days earlier too, his tone full of earnest pleading. I've been drifting in this city for 4 or 5 years. At 26, I'm still a gopher at a small auction house. Back in the day, getting into a top university made me one of the few college grads with the surname Yang in our village. I had my moment of glory. Then I got into a fight with my advisor and was forced to drop out, becoming the laughingstock of the whole village. I still remember all the hidden sarcasm. Oh well, I only have a few close relatives. He's having a big life event. How could I, as the older cousin, not go back? I checked my bank balance, just over 7,000. Gritting my teeth, I ordered a washing machine online for nearly 5,000 as a gift. Back home, they already had a fridge and air conditioner, but nobody had bought a washing machine yet. After handling that, I rushed to work. The main street was holding a temple fair parade, packed with people. The road was blocked, so I had a detour to another street to catch the bus. The crowd was too thick, and I bumped into someone carrying a deity statue. That tall wooden statue of Lord Ma fell toward me. I looked up, but had no time to react. A sharp pain hit my forehead, and then I blacked out. Later, I heard that at that moment, the vertical eye on Lord Ma's forehead shot out a beam of light that drilled into my forehead. When I woke up in the hospital, everything was white. The temple fair organizer was very cooperative. They covered all medical expenses and gave me 10,000 in compensation. The company also called, saying they wouldn't deduct from my salary or bonus. I was just catching my breath when my gaze suddenly fell on a string of beads in the organizer's hand. A slight warmth spread across my forehead, and then I seemed to see something. The string of beads had a faint glow on its surface, like the light of dawn. I quickly shook my head and looked again. It was back to normal. "What's so strange?" the man asked me. "Your bracelet is no ordinary thing, it's an antique, isn't it?" His eyes lit up, and he laughed, saying, "Brother, you've got good taste. This is a Qing Dynasty sandalwood bracelet, also a kind of ritual tool." Later I learned his name was Wang Jun, and he was in the antique business. We hit it off very well, and he even invited me to his home to see his collection. But inside, my heart was already in turmoil. I clearly felt that there was an invisible eye on my forehead. It could see a certain kind of light on objects, but each time I used it, I couldn't go over a minute. If I did, I'd suffer severe pain and need 2 hours to recover. I knew that my life was about to change. After being discharged from the hospital, I headed straight for the most famous antique street in Jiangzhou City, Chongqing Street. It was an old street with centuries of history, paved with bluestone slabs, lined with antique shops and stalls on both sides. Before, I had come with my manager a few times, always as a laborer carrying things. Now I had 10,000 yuan in compensation, plus over 7,000 in savings. I was going to use that. I'd have find my capital for turning my life around here. "Hey, kid, take a look at anything you like. Everything here is top-notch." The slick vendor began to pull his usual spiel. Ignoring him, I focused, opening the vertical eye on my forehead, scanning each object one by one, pausing for only a second on each. Time was too precious. 1-minute limit. Every second was torture. 30 seconds passed, all junk. 40 seconds, nothing. 50 seconds, sweat started beading on my forehead, exhaustion from intense concentration flooding in. Just as I was about to give up, a clay camel caught my eye. The camel itself had no glow, but the small bell around its neck shimmered with a faint halo. This was it. Suppressing my headache, I pretended to be casual as I picked up the clay figurine. "Oh, you have great taste, kid. This is a Tang Dynasty tricolor glazed piece, the most valuable treasure on my stall." The vendor immediately launched into his act. I sneered inwardly. "A Tang Sankai on a street stall? Do you really take me for a novice?" "How much?" 1,800. Usually I sell it for over 2,000. I turned to leave. Hey, don't go. We can talk about the price." "Name your price." 50? I just thought it looked nice, would look good in my room. After some haggling, we settled on 200. The stall owner still looked pained, but I knew full well that this clay pot was probably picked up from a trash heap. Just as I was about to find somewhere to eat, I ran into Wang Jun, who was sitting with an old man in a street-side eatery. "Brother, you're out of the hospital so soon?" Wang Yun weaved him a seat. That old man was no ordinary person. He was Old Chi, a highly respected antiques connoisseur from Jiangzhou City, and a nationally renowned master of mounting and framing. Old Chi looked at my clay pot, then suddenly laughed. "Young friend, you have sharp eye." Wang Jun was stunned. He had just said the clay pot was a new piece. The clay pot is indeed new, but look at this bell. It's a Buddhist ritual object from the late Qing dynasty, consecrated. Only then did Wang Jun notice the small bell. He looked frustrated, saying he'd been in antiques for 10 years, yet missed that detail. "This bell of yours, I estimate it's worth over 50,000. If you run into a feng shui master who needs such an object, doubling that price would be normal." I immediately said I wanted to sell it. Wang Jun directly said to transfer it to him, 50,000, and transferred the money on the spot. The first big find for bargains was finally in hand. After the meal, I continued browsing with Wang Jun. The cooling time for that vertical, I hadn't reached 2 hours yet, so I could only follow behind and occasionally chime in with a few words. As soon as the cooldown was up, I activated the ability again, just in time to see Wang Jun at an antique shop, showing a calligraphy copy to a handsome man. That was Chun Haowen, Wang Jun's close buddy, Old Man Chi's last disciple, and an expert in ancient calligraphy and paintings. That calligraphy copy was bought for 20 yuan from a street stall. At the time, Wang Jun thought it looked too new and didn't want to bother, but I scanned it with the vertical eye and saw a glow. Chun Haowen examined it for over 10 minutes. He put down a magnifying glass. "Good eye, little brother. You've scored a big bargain. This is a genuine work of Yu Yuren. Though there's no signature, the brushwork can't be faked." Yu Yuren, one of the 4 great calligraphers of the Republic era, hailed as the contemporary sage of cursive script. "Keep it for me at 120,000. I had no objections and nodded in agreement. In 2 days, relying on that eye, I netted 170,000. I set off on a private bus late that night and arrived home by dawn the next day. Haven't been back for 4 years. The hometown has changed so much. It used to be all paddy fields. Now, they're all planted with fruit trees. The plum blossoms are in full bloom all over the mountains, a vast expanse of white." Arriving at Shangshui, the driver called out, and I grabbed my backpack and got off. A few women at the village entrance recognized me at a glance. "Isn't this Xiao Yi? Haven't been back for years, right? Today your cousin is getting married. I knew you'd come back." I smiled and exchanged a few words, then quickened my pace toward home. Faint whispers came from behind me. I didn't need to listen to know, it was just those old stories. Outside the house, the drying ground was already set up with tables and a stove, full of festive atmosphere. Dad, Mom, and several uncles, aunts, and relatives were all busy. "Xiao Yi is back. Fourth aunt saw me first. Where's Grandma?" I asked Mom. "Inside. You haven't been back for 3 or 4 years. She always talks about you." I walked into the house. I ran into Grandma, coming downstairs. Her hair was much whiter than 4 years ago, but she was still in good spirits. "You've lost weight. It's been hard outside, hasn't it?" Grandma took my hand, looking me over. "Not hard, just a bit busy. I haven't had time to come back to see you." Grandma immediately told Fourth Aunt to wash the apples. Fourth Aunt looked helpless. I said I didn't want to eat anything, so Grandma told her to pour tea instead. Fourth Aunt gave up, struggling, and resignedly went to do it. Then Third Aunt came over. I quickly congratulated her. "Third Aunt, you'll soon have a grandson to hold. And you, kid, why did you buy such an expensive washing machine? That's too much." Although Third Aunt said this, her face was beaming with joy. I only found out later that they deliberately waited until the wedding day to carry that washing machine into the house, which gave me plenty of face. Grandma said that according to custom, since I, as the eldest brother, wasn't married yet, when the bride enters, I just need to give a big red envelope and hang it around their necks. Giving a red envelope is fine too. "It'll save face for the third brother and his wife," Second Aunt said from the side. I thought to myself, since we're brothers, I can't be sloppy about this. Taking advantage of the fact that the feast hadn't started yet, I went with Mom to Grandfather's house. Grandfather was a veteran. He was tough-tempered and spoke bluntly. No one in the village dared to mess with him. He started lecturing me as soon as he saw me. "Xiaoyi, your third brother is already married. You two brothers are still bachelors. You need to hurry up. Your parents bought land outside. You two should save some money to build a house. Then finding a wife will be easier. Your dad plans to borrow some money this year to first build the two-story shell. Mom explained from aside. Grandpa, Mom, listen to me, I said, looking at them seriously. I'll first transfer 100,000 yuan back and have Dad lay the foundation. There's another sum of money, but I need some time to cash it out. It should arrive within 2 months. Tell Dad to plan for 4 floors directly and do the decoration well. The air went silent for several seconds. Grandpa's mouth was half open, and it took him a while to react. You little rascal, what exactly have you been doing outside these years? Learned some things and saved up some funds. I didn't go into detail. Good. Grandpa suddenly slapped his thigh hard, his face glowing. I always said my grandson was smart. Since he was little, how could he be worse than others? Your mom was always worrying about you suffering outside, but I think you've been quietly making a fortune. Mom's eyes were a bit red, but the corners of her mouth couldn't help turning up. Just before leaving, I stuffed 2,000 yuan into Grandpa's hand. He took it happily, turned around and locked it in the cabinet, then thought about it, felt uneasy, took it out and stuffed it into his pocket. Back at the wedding banquet, the dishes were already on the table. Grandma told me and Grandpa to sit at her table, while Mom was sent to another table. As I passed another table, someone suddenly stood up and stopped me. Xiao Yi, today your third uncle is marrying off his son. You should toast him. The people around chimed in, and someone had already filled a glass. My expression changed slightly. I never drink baijiu, even the smell makes me feel sick. But third uncle was happy today and had already drunk a lot. He also raised his glass, forgetting my drinking capacity. Oh well, today was his happy occasion. I picked up the glass and downed it in one gulp. The fiery liquor burned all the way from my throat to my stomach. Good. Cheers. Xiao Yi, after these years away, you've trained your tolerance. A man about my age walked over with a glass, slowly refilling it. Xiao Yi, don't take this the wrong way, but you've been out there for so many years and your salary is just so-so. Drink this and come be a manager at my e-commerce store in the city. We're classmates after all. I'll look out for you. The people around all chimed in. Boss Lee is truly righteous. Xiaoyi, down this glass quickly. This favor from Boss Lee is no small thing. I looked at his face, and a faint smile curled at the corner of my lips, the hidden sarcasm from 4 years ago, the cold stares I'd endured over those years, the countless nights of hauling cargo in that city 400 kilometers away, all of it surged back in that moment. I raised my glass and downed it in one gulp. No mistake about it, it's rare for Boss Lee to care so much about friendship. Young, he hadn't even spoken when his grandfather flew into a rage. Get lost. You want a drink? If you got the guts, drink a few bottles with me. Whoever chickens out first, their family's got no spine. Old Mr. Yang's loud roar immediately silenced the room. When it came to drinking, few dared to go toe-to-toe with the old man. Grandpa, please sit down. Today is my third brother's big day. Don't cause a scene. Young, he first calmed his grandfather down. Then he picked up a cup of tea, smiled at his former classmate, and said, Young, he rarely drink alcohol, but today my uncle proposed a toast, so I have to drink. I'm not trying to spoil the fun. I'll substitute tea for wine. As an old classmate, you should know my temperament. As for the job offer, I'm actually quite satisfied with my current position. Thank you very much. Some of the elderly at the scene saw how tactfully Yang Yi handled the situation and nodded slightly, thinking to themselves that more education really makes a difference. No one was blind. Everyone knew that those guys were the ones who started the trouble, and it was really out of line. My grandson is now worth millions. Can you afford to hire him? Yang Yi's grandfather reluctantly sat down, still muttering under his breath. Though his voice wasn't loud, everyone nearby heard it clearly. Everyone was taken aback. Was T. Xiao Yi supposed to be struggling? How did he suddenly become a millionaire? Are you kidding me? Are you just blowing smoke out of your ass? Yang Yi's grandmother also knew her in-law as personality. He liked to brag. But this joke was a bit too much. It would embarrass her grandson. So she quickly said, Come on, now that we're all seated, let us eat. Help yourselves, don't be shy. There was another person who wasn't too happy. Yang Yi's mother. If her son was truly hopeless, that would be one thing. But Xiao Yi wasn't any worse than the rest of them, and they still had the nerve to gossip. It was really out of line. The old classmate, after a moment of shock, forced a smile and said, All right, old buddy, don't I know you? Looks like I was wishful thinking. It's hard to get a high achiever like you to come. Inwardly, though, he sneered. He hadn't been home in 3 or 4 years. If he were doing well, would that be the case? Fine. If he didn't appreciate the invitation, forget it. Teacher, long time no see. You're still as healthy as ever. Yang Yi suddenly spotted his elementary school teacher, immediately left everyone behind, and walked over respectfully to greet him. That teacher was already over 70, with a full head of white hair, and had retired years ago. He still remembered Yang Yi as a student clearly and was satisfied with his performance just now. Another student, the one surnamed Li, not only failed to greet him, but also cracked a couple of jokes at his expense. Compared to Yang Yi, it was like heaven and earth. Your class was the most brilliant one in our elementary school's history. Over 10 of you got into the key class at the town middle school. You little rascals deserve a spanking. Not a single one of you kept in touch after graduation. You didn't even notify me about something as big as the college entrance exam. In the end, the teacher scolded them in a lecturing tone. He had always been very concerned about this class, especially the good students like Yang Yi. The year they took the college entrance exam, he followed it closely. When he learned that 7 of them had been admitted to key universities, he broke his rule and had 2 glasses of wine. Hearing this, Yang Yi felt deeply ashamed. The class monitor had told him before that the teacher was old now and had been waiting for their good news on the day the exam results came out. For some reason, everyone felt a sour pang in their hearts. Yes, teacher, we just felt we didn't do well enough and had no face to report to you. Yang Yi immediately admitted his mistake. Rubbish. That year, only about 100 people in the entire city were admitted to top universities, and my class alone contributed 7. A rather discordant voice came from that gossipy woman, the mother of that fellow, muttering under her breath. What's the use of being good at studying? The teacher's face darkened, his mood soured, and he said dejectedly, who knows how they're doing now? They've probably all forgotten about this old man. The truth was, too few students kept in touch with him. In his 20 or 30 years of teaching, he sent out a batch of students every year, but it was rare for anyone to come back and see their teacher. Yang Yi frowned slightly. His impression of that village woman was truly terrible. Teacher, please don't think that way. Everyone couldn't possibly forget you. A while ago, the old squad leader even mentioned you, saying we should find time to come back and visit. They're just too busy. As for the girls, I'm not too sure. Most of them are probably married by now. As for Winba, he's into game development. Look, this is the mobile game he made. The old squad leader is in Yangcheng, working for the Industrial and Commercial Bureau, I heard. As for Ruin, he's even more impressive. He went to the capital, working in the aerospace department. Future scientist material. It's going to be tough to get a meeting with him. As Rong Yang spilled out the details of those top-performing classmates one by one, everyone present was taken aback. Game development? That sounded pretty high-end. Now that smartphones were everywhere, who didn't have 1 or 2 mobile games on their phone? Especially those idle folk could spend all day playing cards or Didizu on their phones. Industrial and Commercial Bureau? Didn't that mean he was an official? Even that guy Lee was stunned. He hadn't known about it either. If it was true, he did need to keep in closer touch with the old squad leader from now on. After all, he ran a home appliance store and dealt with the bureau quite often. As for the one who went to the capital, he completely stunned everyone. To them, the capital was a sacred place, only accessible to those with real talent. Besides, the title of scientist was quite intimidating. Good. A scientist is wonderful. Today, the old teacher was overjoyed. He never imagined that in his lifetime, he would teach a student who became a scientist. Rueruin is contributing to the country's space program. You shouldn't bother him, the teacher added. Just because someone else is doing well doesn't mean you are. Why get so excited? It had to be said, that village woman was practically asking for a scolding, constantly trying to embarrass Yang Yi. If it weren't for the distant family connection, Uncle Third and the others would have thrown her out. The teacher also shot her a glare, but he seemed curious as well. He quietly asked Yang Yi, what about you? What do you do out there? If your job isn't good, make sure to ask those boys for help. Just tell them I sent you. This was his way of showing concern for Yang Yi. Yang Yi's mother whispered a few words to her husband, her gaze falling on her son with immense pride. Of course, there was also some Shinkung, guessing that he must have endured a lot of hardships in the past 3 or 4 years outside. Really? Yang Yi's father's eyes widened. Would my son lie to me? Yang Yi's mother, He Xiaoying, said discontentedly, displeased with her husband's reaction. Good, that's good. This kid, he never discusses anything with the family. When the teacher asked, Yang, he had to briefly talk about himself. My job isn't as prestigious as theirs. I studied archaeology in college. After dropping out, I found a job at an auction house and learned some knowledge about appraising antiques. Now I do that kind of work. Antiques. Many were slightly surprised, especially classmate Lee. He had seen some business partners play with antiques, taking out any random piece, could be worth over 10,000, hundreds of thousands, or even millions. He began to somewhat believe what Yang Yi's grandfather had said earlier. That guy somewhat regretted his earlier behavior, and even more so regretted not keeping in touch with these academically successful classmates. In truth, it was his own inferiority complex at play. Back in elementary school, Yang Yi and the others had always outperformed him academically, always stealing the spotlight. So after he made something of himself and learned that many college graduates still ended up working for others, he grew increasingly dismissive of his former classmates. It must be very profitable, right? Someone asked. Not necessarily. It depends on your eye for things. If you misjudge, the losses can be heavy. Yang, he didn't want to say more. Many wore complex expressions, secretly thinking that they should have their younger family members keep in touch with Yang Yi. In their subconscious, antiques were synonymous with wealth. So in their eyes, Yang Yi had naturally become a figure akin to a god of fortune. Some secretly felt relieved that they hadn't gossiped or spoken ill of him. The old teacher ignored everyone's advice and insisted on having a couple of drinks. As a teacher, seeing a student achieve success was the most gratifying and joyful thing. Yang Yi's grandmother and other close relatives were also overjoyed. Having a remarkable person in the family brought them honor, and more importantly, meant they now had a sturdy tree to lean on for support. Eat, eat, everyone enjoy the meal. Sorry if I'm not doing enough to entertain. Yang Yi's grandmother said. This time, no one dared to look down on the old woman anymore. Everyone knew how close she and her grandson were. After that, the atmosphere became even more harmonious. People toasting didn't dare force the host to drink. They almost always finished their own glasses and let the Yang family do as they pleased. As for the village woman who had been causing trouble earlier, sensing the situation was unfavorable and feeling embarrassed to stay, she seized an opportunity, claiming some urgent family matter, and sneaked away without even eating. After the meal, relatives who wanted to curry favor and get closer suddenly increased. They all focused on Yang Yi's grandmother and his parents. Second brother, my neighbor has a daughter who's also a college graduate. She's a teacher now, and she's quite pretty. I think she'd be a good match for your Xiao Yi. How about letting them try dating? Even if it doesn't work out, they can still be friends, a woman said to Yang Yi's father. That depends on the boy. As you know, he's never listened to my discipline since he was little. He always has his own ideas, Yang Yi's father said helplessly. He wasn't stupid either now that his son was a hot commodity. Finding a daughter-in-law shouldn't be hard, right? Yang, you want to find grandma, and ask for 2 big red envelopes. He took out 20,000 yuan from his backpack, giving those nosy relatives quite a shock. Let's seal it with 9,999. That means eternity, a good omen. Yang Yi said. Second aunt smiled wryly. You really have no words, being the eldest brother like this. She was over 40, and she had never seen such a big red envelope before. There was no denying it. Once those 2 envelopes were hung out, they'd be the pride of the whole village. Anyone who disagreed could make their own envelope even bigger, but no one would be willing. You see, they worked hard all year, tending to their fruit trees, and only made around 100,000 yuan. It was way better than before, but dropping 20,000 on red envelopes would have anyone calling you crazy. Your older sister and second sister married early. They really missed out. Those who haven't married yet are the lucky ones. Fourth aunt laughed as well. Especially Yang Yi's own younger brother and sister, it was foreseeable that he would definitely give them an extravagant gift. Yang Yi withdrew a considerable amount of cash, and on the spot gave each of his aunts 1,000 yuan for grocery money, leaving the remaining 5,000 for his grandmother. Aunties, I want to be visiting your homes for now. I'll definitely come next time, but I got things to take care of over there, Yang Yi said to his aunts. Before long, the bride and groom returned to the village, and the crowd quickly dispersed, everyone rushing over to join the festivities. Yang Yi's grandmother, and the others also began bustling about with preparations. The third uncle had sobered up a bit, and at the eldest uncle's reminder, the couple got ready in the main hall. Bride and groom, stand right there, don't come over yet. Whereas the person in charge of the firecrackers. The auspicious hour is almost here. As soon as it arrives, light them immediately. You all line up in 2 rows, and when the bride and groom pass by, pop the confetti cannons. An old hand directed with perfect order. Yang Yi's elder sister, cousins, and the others were all delighted to see him. It was rare for the siblings and cousins to gather together like this. Brother, we thought you would join us to pick up the bride. When we went to pick her up, it was so frustrating. More than a dozen girls were blocking the door from inside, and we couldn't push it open. The cousins surrounded Yang Yi, chattering nonstop. The reason they got along so well with Yang Yi was that he, as the eldest brother, spoiled them. Whenever they were short on money and mentioned it to him, he would transfer some over. They were also happy to share any troubles they had with him. All right, you've worked hard. Go have some tea over there, and I'll talk to you in a bit. Yang Yi shooed them away. The auspicious time has arrived, the old man shouted loudly. As soon as the words fell, firecrackers rang out. The bride and groom walked hand in hand down the red carpet, and people on both sides pressed the buttons of their confetti cannons, sending colorful bursts of confetti into the air. Yang Yi glanced at his third brother. The young man was wearing a suit and looking extremely spirited. Good lad, you've grown taller than me, Yang Yi murmured to himself. At the entrance, the couple stopped, and the elders began hanging red envelopes on them. This is our eldest brother, the groom introduced to the bride. Hello, big brother, the bride greeted obediently. They were about the same height and looked like a perfect match. Good. Big brother wishes you a child soon. Then he gave each of them a red envelope. The red envelopes were obviously much bigger and thicker, making the onlookers guess how much money was inside. After all, no one underestimated Yang Yi now. Thank you, big brother. Yang Yi stepped out and started chatting with the young girls. Most of them had gone to work in factories without even finishing high school. He didn't know what they were thinking. Big brother, have you struck it rich? The youngest girl asked with great interest. They had just returned and heard the people around talking about their big brother, only then learning that he had made it big outside. All of you are so foolish and frivolous. Studying is so great, but you want to work in factories. Yang Yi tapped the girl on the head. When someone leaked the amount, it caused quite a stir. Red envelopes with over 1,000 yuan were very rare in the countryside, let alone nearly 10,000. This time, everyone knew that little Yi of the Yang family had made it big outside. Didn't you used to get along well with Xiao Yi? You should keep in touch more. Do you have his phone number? A parent said to their son. The guy, who was about the same age as Yang Yi, looked embarrassed. They had gotten along well when they were kids, but his grades weren't good. Starting from middle school, the two basically went their separate ways and lost contact. Moreover, ever since Yang Yi's college incident, he had even sided with Li Debao, since now he was mooching off the guy's home appliance store. When they ate together, Li Debao would mock the former classmates who studied hard and show off in front of the girls, and he could only go along with it. Forget it. That would only make me look more pathetic, the guy said, still having some backbone. Hearing this, his father was a bit choked up. It was also his fault for lacking foresight back then, thinking that Li Debao would turn out more promising than Yang Yi, and telling his son to brown-nose that bastard. To be honest, if Li Debao hadn't struck it rich in recent years and had a change of luck, his popularity in the village would have been very low. When he was little, that guy was always causing trouble, either fighting and bullying others or stealing things. In short, he wasn't a likable character at all. The bride side of the family was quite pleased to learn all this, knowing she had married well. With such a capable eldest brother around, at least their future wouldn't be a struggle, right? Yang Yi was like a catalyst, making the wedding atmosphere even warmer. That night, Yang Yi's father was probably too happy relieved of a heavy burden, so he drank to his heart's content, got drunk, and started babbling nonsense. The next day, Yang Yi personally made a hangover soup for his father. Seeing that his father's voice was a bit hoarse from drinking, he couldn't help saying, "Alcohol is best in moderation, too much harms the body." All right, but occasions like this are rare. His father didn't take it seriously. Then he asked, "Are you leaving today?" Yang Yi nodded. "I called last night to book a spot. The noon bus will pick me up in the village. It's convenient now. After I arrive, I'll transfer 100,000 to your account immediately, Dad." You pick a good day to start construction. Don't worry about the rest of the funds. Okay, I'll have your brother come back to help too. Anyway, he doesn't make much working at the factory. Building a house might not require them to do manual labor like carrying bricks, but it would still be busy. The father and son talked for a while, only stopping their work-related conversation when Grandma called for Yang. It's pretty much the same for children who work away from home. When talking to their father, every few words turn to work. When chatting with their mother, every sentence is about daily life. To Yang Yi's surprise, he received a lot of red envelopes before he left. Almost every relative, even distant ones, stuffed one into his mother's hands, saying it was a village custom to wish Xiao Yi a smooth career as he went out to work. Should I not have taken them? Yang Yi's mother asked immediately, noticing that her son's expression was not quite normal. Yang Yi gave his mother a reassuring look. It's fine, since they're given, we'll keep them. They shoved them at you, so it would have been awkward to refuse. Besides, since they're all somewhat related, you shouldn't let the relationship turn too sour, or people will think you're ignoring them now that you've made it. Just as he was about to get into the car, another person came running after him. It was the old teacher from yesterday. Leaving so soon? Your teacher has nothing else to give. I'm just glad to see you've done well. As he spoke, he stuffed a red envelope into Yang Yi's pocket. Yesterday, Yang Yi specifically looked up Rui Run's phone number, called him, and asked him to say a few words to the teacher. In the end, he also gave the teacher their contact information, which made the old man quite happy. Perhaps that was the happiest day he had had since retiring. In reality, Rui Run was just starting out working in the aerospace department, still far from being a scientist, but in the teacher's eyes, his student was a future scientist. Looking at the old man before him, who had silently dedicated decades to teaching in a rural classroom and was now old, he had 1,000 words he couldn't bring himself to say, knowing that one day, an accident might take him away. Teacher, I wish you good health. Next year, we'll come back together to visit you. Go on. Just give me a call. When you have time, you don't have to come back in person. Rui Run is so far away. It's too troublesome and would interfere with work. Looking at the scenery outside the car window, he felt a mix of emotions and a sense of unreality. Overnight, his life had undergone a huge change. Thinking back on the past 3 or 4 years, it all felt like yesterday. Returning to Jiangzhou City, it was already late, and the streets were sparsely populated with only a few Zhao Yip stalls and some motorcycle taxi drivers waiting by the roadside. It wasn't far from his rented apartment. Since it was an old neighborhood, it was quite chaotic at night, with a lot of garbage and even sewage flowing in some places. I should find a better place someday, Yang muttered to himself. At that moment, a motorcycle drove toward him. He didn't think much of it. These guys who worked the night shift always approach pedestrians carrying bags, asking where they want to go and so on. However, before he could react, the backpack slung across his shoulder was snatched away. He instinctively reached out to grab the motorcyclist's hand, but missed, accidentally pulling off something. Taking a closer look, it was a keychain on the guy's belt loop, with a few keys and a peachwood charm meant to ward off danger and bring safety. People in the distance witnessed the scene, but no one lent a helping hand, which disappointed Yang. Still, there wasn't anything valuable in the backpack, just a set of changed clothes and over 20 red envelopes. The exact amount of money inside was unclear. Forget it. Consider it a lesson learned. The main issue was that the motorcycle had no license plate at all. He had no way to pursue it, and calling the police was useless. Snatch and grab motorcycle gangs are rampant in some cities, and sometimes the police can't do much unless the government is determined to crack down. Just as he was about to throw away those keys, his gaze fell on the peachwood talisman. Based on his years of experience with antiques, the peachwood talisman in his hand seemed far from ordinary. He quickly activated his vertical eye function and scanned it once, and indeed discovered a layer of enchanting rosy light. Let's study it when I get home. He quickened his pace. Once home, he searched the internet based on the shape of the peachwood talisman. The peachwood talisman was carved with a phoenix, which felt very asymmetrical, as if it were only half. The craftsmanship was not far from that of a master. After spending over half an hour, he still found no information related to this peachwood talisman. I'll go see Brother Wang tomorrow. Time to sleep. He had no choice but to put aside his research. Besides, he had to report to the auction house in the morning. Word was a new boss had arrived, no idea if they'd be easy to get along with. The thought of quitting started creeping in. When he woke up, Yang Yi tidied up his appearance out of habit and headed for the auction house. The idea of quitting had surfaced last night, but after thinking it over, he figured this job was still worth staying in. It helped broaden his horizons. He had arranged to meet Wang Jun around noon to unlock the secret of that peach wood talisman. As soon as he arrived at the auction house, he sensed something was off with the atmosphere. Before, when there was nothing to do, everyone was laid back, shooting the breeze and cracking jokes, even flirting with the receptionist. But now, everyone seemed on edge. Brother Xiong, everyone's working hard today. Yang Yi remarked. The security guard sneaked a glance inside before whispering to Yang, "You'll find out soon enough. Didn't new boss come to our auction house? She's a real stunner." Yang Yi was taken aback. "Isn't that a good thing? Aren't you all happy?" The man smiled wryly. "She's a beauty, all right, but not easy to get along with. In just 2 days, she scolded almost everyone at the auction house." After saying that, he suddenly thought of something and looked at Yang Yi with sympathy. "What?" Yang Yi was puzzled by that look. "I heard you've been assigned to run errands for her. Take your time enjoying it." Anyway, before he could finish, Brother Xiong immediately straightened up, looking completely proper, leaving Yang Yi hanging as if they weren't familiar, focusing on guarding the entrance. Before Yang Yi could figure out what was going on, a woman's voice sounded from behind him. "Are you Yang Yi? Come with me now. You drive." Yang Yi turned around and saw an oval face with a voluptuous figure made even more prominent by the business suit, and the allure of her stockings was downright tantalizing. However, the chill on her face snapped Yang Yi back to reality. "I'm Yang Yi. Hello, Chief Miao." Yang Yi was a man of action, and without any further ado, he immediately plunged into work. Miao Fei felt quite helpless inside. This auction house was on the verge of collapse, with very poor business. The headquarters had wanted to shut it down several times. Her father had thrown her here to train, and many people were not optimistic about her. Originally, she was a bit unconvinced, but after arriving here and fully understanding everything, her mood hit rock bottom. Naturally, she hadn't been showing a good face to people these past 2 days. Currently, the most important thing was to turn things around, improve the business, and prove herself. The reason she transferred Yang Yi to her side was that she valued his pragmatic personality. He had worked diligently at the grassroots level for a long time and knew many things about the auction house. Besides, a young person would be easier to manage. Her first impression of Yang Yi was fairly satisfactory. He was spirited and didn't talk much nonsense. "President Miao, where are we going?" Yang Yi asked from the driver's seat. "There's a century-old mansion in Jiotong village, east of the city. Do you know it?" Miao Fei asked. "I've heard of it, but I've never been there," Yang Yi said. "I've only heard people say there's a major collector there, surnamed Zhu, with a huge collection that could fill a museum." If Yang Yi hadn't guessed wrong, it must be that the auction house had an agreement with that collector, willing to put 1 or 2 items up for auction at their venue. Finding that old mansion wasn't difficult. They parked the car nearby and walked over. The mansion maintained a garden style, with many rockeries and a dazzling array of exotic flowers and rare plants. A servant led Yang Yi and the others inside, where they waited in a living room. They didn't have to wait long before a middle-aged fat man came out, with a big head and big ears, wearing a harmless smile. "Mr. Chung, sorry to bother you." Miao Fei immediately stood up and said. This guy's surname was Zhu, named Zhu Desheng, but he didn't like being called Boss Zhu, which Miao Fei had found out. Sure enough, addressing him that way made the fat man very pleased. He laughed and said, "No need to be polite, President Miao. I'm a friend of your uncle's. It's only right that I support your business." They chatted casually for a bit, then brought up the collection. As for Yang Yi standing by, the man hardly noticed him, just an errand boy, not worth paying attention to. "Come, take a look first. I brought this back from overseas." Zhu Desheng pointed at the plum vase on the table. The plum vase is a traditional famous porcelain of the Han Chinese, a bottle shape with a small mouth, short neck, plump shoulders, narrow base, and ring foot. It is named because the small mouth can only hold plum branches. Due to its slender body, it was called a Jing bottle in the Song dynasty, used for holding wine with an elegant and graceful form. After the Ming dynasty, it was known as the plum vase. Although he was a collector, he was not deeply versed in the study of these antiques. For instance, regarding plum vases, he only knew that they first appeared in the Tang dynasty, became popular during the Song and Liao periods, and many new varieties emerged. During the Song and Yuan dynasties, various kilns produced them, with the Yuan dynasty, Jingdezhen blue and white plum vases being the most exquisite. Therefore, he had one or two imperial appraisers who specialized in identifying various antiques for him. Young, he took a few careful looks, and the others did not pay attention. He noticed that, judging by its shape, this should be a plum vase from the Ming or Qing dynasty. Based on his knowledge, the bottle had rounded, drooping shoulders, a very typical Ming dynasty style. Additionally, it gave a sense of calm dignity, but with a slight touch of ostentation. Boss Cheng's treasures are naturally all top-notch. Miao Fei flattered. She had heard that this item was acquired by Zhu Desheng from overseas not long ago, an heirloom piece of considerable value. In her mind, since he had his own appraisers, the possibility of it being a fake was basically ruled out. That was also why she didn't bring the auction house's appraiser along when she left. At that moment, two elderly gentlemen walked in from outside, and one of them was actually someone Yang he knew, Old Qi, whom he had met not long ago. Zhu Desheng immediately stood up to greet them, adopting a very humble posture. Old Qi, Old Zhang, what brings you here? My humble place is truly honored. Old Zhang was his chief appraiser, often handling appraisal work for him, and many significant pieces had passed through his hands. Old Qi is interested in one of your treasures, so I brought him along. Old Zhang said with a smile. Oh, which item could have caught Old Qi's discerning eye? Zhu Desheng was slightly surprised. In Jiangzhou City's antique circle, Old Qi was a titan figure, and even he had to treat him with great respect. Old Qi smiled. I heard that you, the big boss, have a collection of Zhang Daqian's work. I wonder if this old man could have a look, and if possible, I hope you might be willing to part with it. Zhang Daqian is a famous modern painter who traveled the world and gained immense international reputation. He was praised by the Western art world as the brush of the East, and also known as the painter who copied the most famous paintings in the world. Because Mr. Zhang Daqian's works are so precious, they have been included in the list of protected artworks restricted from export. This shows how difficult it is to collect one of his works. After speaking, he looked at Yang Yi and continued, Young friend, we meet again. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone looked at Yang Yi in surprise, especially Miao Fei and Zhu Desheng, who never imagined that such an ordinary nobody could be remembered by old Master Qi, and his impression seemed quite good. It is my great honor to see you, Senior, Yang Yi said respectfully. Old Master Qi had also heard from that rascal Wang Jun that this young man was self-taught, and given his current age, he had knowledge and foundation. What was even more difficult was his attention to detail and insight, which made Old Master Qi admire Yang Yi greatly. Old Master Qi, this is President Miao of our city's auction house. You know her employee? It seems I was not sharp-eyed. Zhu Desheng nodded kindly at Yang Yi, smiled slightly, and expressed his apology. In any case, just the fact that this young man had earned Old Qi's appreciation was enough to make him think highly of him. Hello, Old Qi. Miao Fei didn't know anyone in this circle, but seeing Zhu Desheng's deferential attitude, she realized this old man was no ordinary person. Her family's business mainly dealt in jewelry, so she had some understanding of the jewelry world. Old Qi exchanged a few pleasantries with Miao Fei, saying something about her being young and promising, then turned to Yang Yi in surprise. So you work at an auction house? No wonder. Only Yang Yi could understand the deeper meaning of those words. Having no teacher, but possessing great skill if he worked at an auction house, he would be exposed to many antiques and accumulate knowledge, which would make sense. Miao Fei cast a pleasing glance at Yang Yi, delighted inside. She thought to herself, it seems my judgment is really good. I just got here and already found a talent the auction house had almost buried. Just then, Miao Fei received a phone call. It seemed to be something urgent. Zhu Desheng, being a shrewd man, immediately said understandingly, Chief Miao, if you have something to attend to, go ahead. No need for formalities. Miao Fei nodded gratefully and was about to take the plum vase and leave. But the auction house was dealing with a problem concerning the upcoming auction, which was also her first big challenge there, and she didn't want to mess it up. President Miao, hold on. I think there's something wrong with this plum vase. Yang Yi shot Zhu Desheng an apologetic look. Everyone was stunned by Yang Yi's sudden remark, especially Zhu Desheng, whose face turned sour. Miao Fei was considered a junior to him, and having such an unexpected issue while she was supporting his business was a huge embarrassment. Oh, the one that was just brought back from overseas? Let me have a look. Old Zhang frowned. He hadn't had the chance to appraise this item yet. To be honest, he had trusted another appraiser from Zhu Deshang's team and assumed no major mistakes would be made. After the initial shock, Miao Fei felt a bit awkward. Still, she didn't blame Yang Yi for speaking up. If there really was a problem, it wouldn't just be a financial loss, but also a blow to the auction house's reputation. If you're wrong, we'll apologize sincerely later, she whispered to Yang Yi. Yang Yi nodded, but he was confident there wouldn't be a mistake. He had used his vertical eye and saw no trace of treasure light, which meant something was definitely off. After these few days of adjustment, he had become thoroughly convinced of the miraculous power of that vertical eye. Seeing that even Yang Yi said so, Old Qi became a bit interested and joined Old Zhang in examining the plum vase. The body of the plum vase, besides the plum blossom pattern, also bore a poem. At first glance, it gave an exquisite impression. Judging by the surface porcelain, it didn't look like a new piece. Old Qi was the first to stop his gaze, and his look at Yang Yi grew even more appreciative. Catching that look from Old Qi, Zhu Deshang and Miao Fei both understood the plum vase was indeed problematic. Miao Fei felt a bit lucky, while Zhu Deshang, aside from embarrassment, also had a hint of relief inside. If this plum vase had gone unchecked and been put up at the auction house, only to be appraised as a forgery later, he would have lost face badly. For someone of their status, reputation was of utmost importance. Having the issue discovered now meant only a private moment of awkwardness, leaving room to make amends. No wonder Xiao Chun couldn't spot the problem. This is an ultra-high imitation, so authentic that even the surface has been treated. Without a careful internal inspection, it's impossible to find the flaw. Elder Zhang spoke, his words somewhat salvaging Zhu Deshang's reputation. Those foreigners are getting more skillful too, Zhu Deshang said helplessly. Now that he thought back, he felt he had fallen into a trap. If it were genuine, why wouldn't that foreigner take it to a proper auction? That would bring in more money, and he wouldn't let Zhu have a bargain. Now, he truly dared not underestimate this young man. Just now, the other party had only glanced at it a few times, taking even less time than Old Qi, and yet he had spotted the problem. He always made a point to befriend capable people. President Miao, I'm really sorry about this. To make up for my mistake, I'll bring out another treasure for your auction house to sell. Thank you, Boss Chung. Zhu Deshang waved his hand and continued. Actually, I'm very curious how you could tell, especially since you didn't even look closely. At these words, Old Qi and the others were stunned again. Didn't look closely? Even they had to carefully inspect to find the problem. After all, this counterfeit must have been made using very advanced technology to artificially age it. Miao Fei also realized, yes, this guy hadn't even picked it up to study it just now. So how did he spot the problem? How strange. Young friend, speak boldly. Don't worry about saving face for us old geezers. Elder Qi's words dispelled Yang Yi's concerns. Actually, this forgery isn't professional at all. One look, and it's clear it was probably made by foreigners. Look at this poem, the third line, the second character from the end. Following Yang Yi's guidance, the two elders looked over. When they saw that character, they instantly understood and exchanged wry smiles. We were careless. Elder Zhang said repeatedly. There was really no need to study the porcelain itself. The problem could be seen from the calligraphy of that line. But they had both fallen into habitual thinking, first checking the porcelain itself. Isn't this poem originally a word? Miao Fei vaguely remembered. Wasn't it correct? Even Zhu Deshang hadn't spotted the trick yet and was a bit confused. Yang, he had to explain. Look at this character. It's clearly a modern simplified character. How could it appear in ancient times? Huh? This. Zhu Deshang didn't know what to say. A whole group of people, and not one of them had thought of that issue. This flaw is too obvious, which is why a lot of people overlooked it. In the end, they just weren't careful enough, Old Qi said with a smile. No wonder. Yang, he had told them that the replica was unprofessional, extremely unprofessional. Yet many Chinese appraisers had fallen into a mental dead end, unable to see such an obvious flaw. President Miao, are you just having him run errands for you? Yang Yi, are you interested in coming to work for me? The pay will definitely be better than what you get at the auction house, Zhu Deshang said, unafraid to poach right in front of Miao Fei. Since he was so open about it, Miao Fei wasn't offended and quickly laughed. Boss Chung, you have plenty of experts around you. Stop joking. Yang Yi is my auction house's secret weapon. She also thought that once they returned, she absolutely needed to raise Yang Yi's pay, or would be ashamed to lose him. Thank you for your kindness, Boss Chung. Yang Yi didn't have a bad impression of the chubby man. Even though he had just caused him to lose face, Zhu Deshang didn't seem to hold a grudge. Someone else might have harbored resentment. Zhu Deshang could only give a regretful, bitter smile, then took out another piece of porcelain from his treasure trove, one even more valuable than the plum vase. Yang Yi suddenly remembered the peachwood talisman in his hand and quickly took it out. Old Qi, could you take a look at this talisman for me? Taking advantage of Zhu Deshang's absence while he went to retrieve the item, Old Qi didn't mind helping with an appraisal. He took it, and the moment it touched his hands, he could feel the exceptional quality of the material sensation honed from decades of handling antiques. A fine piece, he couldn't help but say. Upon hearing fine piece, not only old Zhang, but even Miao Fei looked over curiously, waiting for more. Old Qi looked at it for a while, then fell into thought. After a few minutes, he raised his head. At that moment, Zhu Deshang brought out Zhang Daqian's painting. Seeing that Old Qi was busy, he did not interrupt and waited patiently. In terms of material, this is a 100-year-old peachwood core, extremely rare. Peachwood growing for a century is already uncommon, and the core is even rarer. Additionally, from my study, this piece of peachwood was probably struck by lightning while it was still growing. Even just considering the material, this is already a treasure. If I'm not mistaken, this should be a spiritual artifact. Unfortunately, it's only half. The other half must be a dragon-shaped talisman made by a Taoist priest. As for its origin, it reminds me of a story. Old Qi continued. Then he told Yang Yi and the others a story. It is said that in the mid-Ming dynasty, a Taoist priest in Jiangnan came down from the mountain, broke his vows, and had relations with a woman. A few months later, the woman gave birth to a boy and a girl, but she was drowned in a pig cage and died. The Taoist priest was also a skilled fortune teller, and he calculated that the two children had ill-fated lives. So, he took a piece of peach wood that had been treasured in the temple for many years, spent considerable time carving two peach wood talismans, and infused them with powerful spiritual energy as protective artifacts for the children. The one we're looking at now is the wish-fulfilling talisman. The other is called the auspicious talisman, both meant for protection. I'd heard this rumor before, but never paid it much mind. Seeing this peachwood talisman now, it seems the rumor might hold some truth. Old Qi said with a smile. Hearing that it was a protective artifact, Zhu Deshang immediately became interested. His wife was pregnant, and although the baby's gender was still unknown, acquiring this peachwood talisman to give to the future child seemed like an excellent choice. Would you be willing to sell it? He asked. You want it? Yang Yi asked in surprise. Miao Fei had originally wanted Yang Yi to auction it at her own auction house, but since Zhu Deshang wanted it, she opened her mouth, then said nothing, considering it as repaying a favor to Zhu Deshang. My wife is about to give birth. I really like this peachwood charm of yours. All right, name your price. After all, Yang Yi was short on money now and had no intention of keeping it. Wasn't he at the same whoever wanted it? Since this guy wanted to buy it for his future child, he surely wouldn't shortchange him, right? Zhu Deshang turned to old Zhang with a pleading look. He himself had no idea how much it was roughly worth. Old Zhang thought for a moment and said, purely in terms of antique value, around 300,000 is fine. However, Old Qi also said this peachwood charm is a magical artifact, so I can't really estimate that. Old Qi, since he would later have a favor to ask of that fellow Zhu Deshang, didn't he speak up for Yang Yi at this moment, just watching with a smile from the side. Yang Yi, how about this? I'll double it and offer 600,000. What do you say? True to expectations, he didn't shortchange Yang Yi. The price had already exceeded Yang Yi's expectations, so he had no objection and nodded, saying, all right, thank you very much. After the transaction, Yang Yi originally wanted to take a look at that Zhang Daqian painting as well, since it was a chance to learn more. However, Miao Fei had some urgent matters to attend to, so they had to part ways regretfully. Yang Yi, you've been working at the auction house for almost 2 years now. What are your thoughts? Miao Fei suddenly asked while in the car. Thoughts? After acquiring the vertical eye, his only thought was probably to quit. If it weren't for the auction house still giving him opportunities to learn, he would have resigned without hesitation. Not yet, but I might resign in a while. Yang Yi didn't mind saying it directly, to avoid awkwardness later and to give her a heads up. Miao Fei thought to herself. As expected, talented people couldn't stay obscure forever. The fact that Yang Yi had stayed quiet at the auction house for so long already showed great patience. At this point, Miao Fei had to bring up compensation and future work arrangements otherwise. She couldn't hold on to this talent. Don't think about resigning for now. In the future, you can keep this job at the auction house on the side. This year, I'll give you an annual salary of 500,000. Next year, I'll raise it, and there will be year-end benefits as well. Usually, you'll just follow me around, you'll still have plenty of free time. How about it? Miao Fei had been thinking ever since they left Zhu Desheng's place about what kind of compensation would be best for this guy. Yang Yi was stunned. This treatment was worlds apart from before. The most important thing was that it was a part-time position. She wasn't trying to force him to stay tied to the auction house, which made him feel favorably toward her. The auction house is in a tough spot right now. Stay and help me out. Having said that, Miao Fei had already set aside her authority as a leader and her maidenly reserve. Yang Yi was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay." Knowing Yang Yi was a man of few words, Miao Fei breathed a sigh of relief when he nodded in agreement. "We might be a bit busy these next couple of days, running around a lot." She explained to Yang Yi the current troubles at the auction house. The main issue was that 3 auction items had some problems, which prompted an investigation by the Cultural Relics Department, so they couldn't be traded for now. These kinds of problems weren't something the auction house could possibly catch every time. A bronze tripod? Yang Yi frowned. Bronze artifacts appear all over the world and are a symbol of global civilization. In China, however, bronze tripods hold a particular significance. Bronze is a great invention in human history, the earliest alloy in the world's metallurgical casting history. Adding tin and lead to red copper creates a new alloy. After thousands of years of chemical reactions, a layer of bluish-gray rust appears on its surface, so modern people call it bronze, while the ancients referred to this alloy as metal. The tripod is the bronze artifact that best represents supreme power. China's earliest concept of unifying the world under one power is directly related to the birth of the tripod. Do we also accept items that have just been unearthed? Yang Yi thought that the auction house wouldn't make such a basic mistake, right? Judging whether a bronze artifact is newly excavated shouldn't be too difficult to authenticate, right? How did this kind of trouble come about? The management of bronze tripods in China is very strict, especially those handed down from ancient times are almost always rigorously inspected. The experts from the Cultural Relics Department have examined them and preliminarily determined that those 3 bronze tripods were indeed unearthed recently, but the objects have been treated, so there are no obvious signs of excavation. Our appraiser misjudged them. With the auction items held up, the top priority now is to find suitable replacements before dealing with the unearthed artifacts. The worst part is that all 3 items were bought outright by our auction house, and the clients are already unreachable. Miao Fei felt a bit unlucky. Back at the auction house, everyone was stunned by the way President Miao treated Yang Yi, unable to figure out what was going on. For the past 2 years, Yang Yi had been struggling at the bottom of the ladder. How did this make sense? Has President Miao taken a liking to that guy Yang Yi? Someone whispered. Keeping him? No way, he's not even that handsome, is he? Who knows? Maybe President Miao has a unique taste. All right, stop gossiping. If this gets out, none of us will have a future here. Meanwhile, the finance department received orders from President Miao to draft a new employment contract for Yang Yi. The terms in it left them stunned for a long time. Whoa, 500,000 annual salary. That guy's luck has finally turned around. Looks like President Miao really values Yang Yi. He still doesn't have a girlfriend, right? Xiao Yu, aren't you going to make a move? A woman teased. In the finance department, Xiao Yu was the only one who wasn't married yet, so the other women could only feel jealous and resentful. After all, that girl Xiao Yu was pretty, and it was precisely because she had the capital that she remained single until now. He's not the man Chief Miao has her eye on, is he? Xiao Yu said hesitantly. To be honest, at her age, it was impossible not to be eager to get married. For now, she was still fine. She had a great figure and good looks, so she could afford to be picky. But in another 2 or 3 years, that advantage might be gone. Seeing a promising prospect, it would be a lie to say she wasn't tempted. Besides, Yang, he was only a year older than her. He wasn't particularly handsome, but he wasn't ugly either. And with his current job benefits, Xiaoyu was genuinely interested. Got your heart racing? We all support you. But if Chief Miao really has her eye on him, then forget it. The women teased. Miao Fei took Yang Yi to the auction house's vault. This was Yang Yi's first time entering the vault. We still have other auction items, but they're too low end to replace those 3 bronze tripods. Miao Fei stated. Originally, the 3 bronze tripods were meant to be the grand finale of the auction. Now that the highlight was gone, no wonder the auction house was panicking. Accompanying him was the appraiser from their auction house, a middle-aged man named Lulu, who had considerable expertise in antiques. Back when the auction house was established, they had poached him with an annual salary of 800,000 yuan. Lulu felt a bit awkward, as the blunder with the bronze tripod had a lot to do with him. What surprised him was that President Miao had actually promoted the young man Yang Yi, and he vaguely guessed that Miao was planning to assign Yang Yi appraisal work. Was that reliable? President Miao, if it's really not working, let's use this porcelain as the final featured piece, Lulu suggested. The porcelain he mentioned was exactly the piece Miao Fei had just brought back from Zhu Dusheng's house, a Ming Dynasty blue and white porcelain shaped like a gourd bottle. To be more precise, it should be called a flattened, gourd-shaped vase with a ribbon handle. It has an oval base, low ring foot, and is fully glazed. The upper rounded belly and handles feature blue and white intertwined floral patterns, while the main decoration on the lower part is blue and white wheel flowers, also known as Buddhist flowers. There is a horizontal joint on the lower belly, indicating it is a product from the Yongle and Xuande periods. The blue and white color is rich and the shape is elegant. It's still not quite enough to be the final highlight. Let's take a look first. Miao Fei shook her head. Then, she turned to Yang Yi and said, Yang Yi, first familiarize yourself with our inventory here to make your future work easier. This afternoon, you'll come out with me again. At this point, she could only run around more and ask for favors. Yang Yi had spoken very little from beginning to end. Only when Manager Miao spoke to him did he reply with 2 words, okay. After stepping through this door, Yang Yi's gaze was fixed on the antiques, unable to look away. At the same time, that vertical eye opened, using up the precious minute. Noticing that Yang Yi kept glancing at a painting, Lulu smiled and said, this landscape of clear sound is something Manager Lin brought back last year. It's a forgery. The original is currently housed in the Taipei Museum. Back then, as soon as Manager Lin brought it back, he could tell at a glance it was a forgery because the original was still in the museum. How could it be real? So he couldn't even be bothered to look at it again. Yang Yi looked at the painting. The ink was thick and moist, with many wet brushstrokes. Through the penetration of ink and the fusion of brush and ink, the forest's freshness and deep seclusion were vividly expressed. The painting depicted a secluded pavilion in the forest, with a waterside pavilion perched on the slope, beneath which dense, secluded bamboo groves spread. The original painter, Shi Tao, was a remarkable figure, hailed as a master of his generation. From his surviving works, Shi Tao is not only considered an innovative painter in art history, but also a prolific artist with a wide range of subjects. His techniques were highly varied, yet he was able to uniquely and harmoniously unify them into his own distinctive style. Shi Tao was a monk who transitioned from Zen Buddhism to painting, hence his style exudes a transcendent and ethereal quality. His works, whether landscapes, figures, flowers, or animals, achieved high artistic merit. In his time, he was known as one of the 4 monks. He found it strange. He knew the original was in the Taipei Museum. Yet, what his third eye had just seen was a dense, radiant glow, even more intense than that of the gourd-shaped vase with a flat belly and ribbon-like handles. That was odd. His gaze fell on the seal, which also bore Shi Tao's name. However, when he looked closely, he noticed 3 faint, small characters in the middle of the seal. Suddenly, Yang Yi felt a strong desire to claim it as his own, knowing it was a treasure. While he was lost in thought, Miao Fei also noticed his unusual behavior. She had experienced his keen eye before, so she too began to focus on the painting. What? Could it be the original? She asked, somewhat hopefully. How is that possible? Lulu was amused by Miao Fei's thought. The one in the Taipei Museum couldn't be a fake. After all, it had been personally authenticated by so many master appraisers. Since that painting is real, this one must be fake. Yang, he hesitated for a moment. He wanted to find a way to get it, but it might be impossible. However, he still made an effort. Can you transfer it to me? As soon as those words left his mouth, Yang, he regretted them. Saying that was like telling everyone he had something to hide, wasn't it? Miao Fei's expression, a mix of a smile and something else, made Yang he completely realize that he had no chance with that painting. He couldn't make out those three small characters clearly, but he guessed them anyway. Mainly, he thought of some information and matched it up, finding it was almost certain. Lulu was stunned. They all said it was a fake, and you still want it? Are you stupid? Did you see it's a high-quality replica and wanted to show off at home? The more he thought about it, the more he believed this was the case. Explain yourself. Yang, you're an employee of the auction house. This was meant to remind Yang not to take advantage of the auction house, to always consider the auction house's interests, and not to use his position for personal gain. No longer fixated on that treasure, Yang, he felt much more relaxed. It wasn't his, and he wouldn't force it. Besides, with his vertical eye, he wasn't afraid of not making money. There was no need to leave too bad an impression on others. Seeing Yang Yi's serious demeanor, Lulu couldn't help but become earnest. The only thing to fear in work is lack of seriousness. When you calm down, it's easy to discover things. He occupied a spot, almost lying on top of the painting, studying it with a magnifying glass in his hand. Just now, Brother Lu said the genuine work is in the Taipei Museum, so this one in front of us cannot be an authentic Shirtao, Yang, he stated. So it's still a fake? Miao Fei felt disappointed. Yang, he nodded. That's right. Strictly speaking, it's still a fake. However, it's a high-level fake, even a top-grade fake. In terms of value, it shouldn't be far behind the genuine work. Upon hearing the first part, Miao Fei was about to give up, but the latter part renewed her spirits. How so? A fake can be that valuable? Is it a copy by a famous master? Miao Fei was no fool. She immediately caught the key point. Talking to smart people is so easy. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm about 80 or 90% certain it's from a famous master. The paper, ink, and everything else are all items from Shirtao's era. Combined with this incredibly realistic imitation technique, it looks just like an authentic piece. Yang Yi said. At that moment, Lulu also said in confusion, it really is an incredibly close imitation. Xiaoyang is right, the paper used is from the early Qing dynasty. But this technique, whose work is it exactly? Have you figured it out? Miao Fei looked at Yang, guessing that this guy had probably recognized whose work it was. Not certain enough. Then what's your guess? Miao Fei pressed. Director Miao, do you still remember meeting Old Qi at Zhu Desheng's house? Yang Yi asked. Miao Fei was taken aback. Him? Old Qi? No way. Even Lu was startled. Although Old Qi was an expert in ancient calligraphy and painting, his imitation skills probably weren't at this level. Were they? It's not his work. At that time, didn't he want a painting from Zhu Desheng's house? It was precisely this memory that gave Yang Yi a target for his guess. And after comparing, he was almost certain. Zhang Daqian? Miao Fei suddenly remembered. If it was a work by Zhang Daqian, then it was truly precious. Lulu was also startled, and his gaze immediately returned to the painting. The more he looked, the more he felt this guess was correct. Having been in the antique circle for so long, he was quite familiar with these famous figures. Zhang Daqian was skilled at copying, and his favorite pastime was imitating others' works, often to the point where it was almost impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. If it was him, then it wouldn't be surprising. You think so too? Miao Fei looked at Lulu. Lulu was cautious and remained silent for a moment before nodding slightly. I'm not certain, but I agree with Xiaoyang's view. At that moment, he truly dared not underestimate Yang Yi anymore. This guy had real skill. No wonder President Miao immediately gave him a raise and changed his job. Wasn't that all very deserved? He told Miao Fei that Zhang Daqian himself had spent a great deal of time and effort copying ancient masterpieces. In particular, his imitations of Shi Tao and Bada Shanren were so lifelike they were almost indistinguishable from the originals. And it was from this that he took his first steps in painting. He started with the Qing dynasty's Shi Tao, then moved on to Bada Shanren, Chun Hongshou, Su Wei, and others, expanding widely to cover the Ming and Qing masters, then the Song and Yuan dynasties, and finally tracing back to the Sui and Tang. He picked out representative painters from each dynasty, studying them deeply from the recent to the distant. To test whether his forgeries could reach a level of authenticity that would fool experts, he invited renowned connoisseurs like Huang Binhong, Zhang Songyu, Luo Jinyu, Chun Banding, and Yi Gongchua, as well as experts from famous museums worldwide to appraise them, leaving behind many interesting anecdotes. The artistic value of Zhang Daqian's forgeries and their place in Chinese art history often surpass that of the genuine works of ancient masters. Now, many museums around the world have collected his forgeries. Auction houses over in Hong Kong have even sold one of his imitation ancient works for a sky-high price. So when Xiao Yang said it was his work, the more I looked at it, the more it seemed right. Lula said a lot. How about we go ask some seniors like Qi Lao for their appraisal? Yang Yi spoke up. All right, you're close with him. Chief Miao agreed on the spot. If the appraisal comes back genuine, it won't just perfectly resolve the trouble with this auction. She had a premonition that it would be a very successful auction, attracting many competitors. After all, it's truly hard to find a painting by Zhang Daqian nowadays. Hearing this, Lulu glanced at Yang Yi in surprise and felt even more wary of underestimating this young man. He was actually close with old Qi. His future was boundless. Just right. I don't have anything to do either. Shall we go together? There was a hint of pleading in his tone. Of course, Lulu wanted to visit a big shot like old Qi, but usually he had no opportunity or reason to call on him, as it could easily cause displeasure. All right, I'll make a call first and ask. Yang Yi called Wang Jun to apologize, saying that the peach charm had already been clarified by old Qi, and he had even sold it to Zhu Deshang on the side. Finally, he asked if Wang Jun was free to visit old Qi together, as there was a treasure he wanted to ask him to authenticate. Wang Jun was a man of leisure, naturally with no reason to be busy. Upon hearing about a treasure, he immediately agreed. Without him leading the way, Yang Yi wouldn't know how to go either. He wasn't really familiar with old Qi, having only met him 2 or 3 times. However, the senior thought highly of him. Let's go. We need to pick someone up first. When Lulu saw Wang Jun, he was surprised again. He's your friend? Yeah, you know him. Yang Yi asked back. Lulu gave a wry smile. How could he not know him? Even if he didn't, he'd heard of him, right? In Jiangzhou's antique circle, that guy was considered an oddball with quite a reputation. I know him, but not very well. He's an important client of our auction house. Upon hearing Lu Li's words, Miao Fei's mind became active. Important client? She really should get to know him. Brother Wang, this is General Manager Miao of our auction house. And this. Before he could finish, Wang Jun waved his hand. Lulu, the appraiser from your auction house, I know him. No need for introductions. Hello, General Manager Miao. He had been dealing with auction houses for quite a while. How could he not have met that guy Lulu? Besides, Luli's appraisal skills were only slightly better than his own. He must have heard of him, right? Hello. Looking forward to working with you, Miao Fei said with a smile. Then, Wang Jun began to press for details about the Peachwood charm. When they learned the whole story, everyone in the car was stunned. The Peachwood charm was stripped from a gang member of the Flying Car Gang? Why doesn't he come and rob me once? Wang Jun said with great distress. This is a blessing in disguise, isn't it? Lulu said, somewhat envious. Miao Fei, on the other hand, didn't know what to say. She was in a daze for a long time. Such a plot was too astonishing. By the way, what about the other treasure you mentioned? Let me see it first, Wang Jun said impatiently. Before Yang Yi could speak, Miao Fei took out that scroll painting, acting a bit cautiously. After all, if Yang Yi and the others weren't mistaken, it was a painting by Zhang Daqian, and moreover a copy of a famous masterpiece, of extremely high value. Just now, she had specifically looked up the auction records of Zhang Daqian's famous works in recent years, which had surprised and delighted her. The auction record for Zhang Daqian's masterpieces was over 200 million, almost national treasure level. If this one could reach the tens of millions level, it would be crucial for changing the current situation of their auction house. Wang Jun gently and carefully unfolded it, took a glance, and his expression immediately turned strange. Landscape with pure sounds? You're not joking, are you? Lulu immediately grinned. Wasn't this expression exactly the same as his own back then? At the time, When President Lin brought it back, he had also taken one glance and lost interest. I can guarantee it's a fake. Wang Jun slapped his chest and said. Yang Yi rolled his eyes at him and said gloomily, I know it's not a genuine Sure Tao. Then why are you still going to see old Qi? You'll get scolded. You're trying to screw me over. No, let me out of the car. Wang Jun instantly lost all desire to go see old Qi. Come on, take a closer look, will you? The paper quality, the painting style, it's almost flawless. Before Yang Yi could finish, Wang Jun interrupted. Then it's still a fake. Ahem, let me finish. I suspect it's a copy by Zhang Daqian. Take a good look. Yang Yi quickly and succinctly said. Zhang Daqian. Seeing Lu also nodding in agreement, Wang Jun immediately became serious, carefully examining every tiny detail. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. It does seem possible, he finally said after a long pause. Changing his tone, he continued, but I can't be sure either. From the way you sound, it's like you're already certain. Yang Yi smiled bitterly and explained, it's precisely because I'm not certain that I'm going to find old Qi. Besides, look at this mark, there are 3 characters in the middle here. Hearing this, Lulu leaned in again. He hadn't noticed any mark earlier. But when the two of them looked through a magnifying glass, they indeed found 3 blurry characters. Putting 2 and 2 together, they were already inclined to agree with Yang Yi's claim. You bastard, you've got some sharp eyes. How did you even spot that? Wang Yun glared at Yang Yi. Why didn't you mention this earlier? They have been guessing back and forth for nothing. Indeed, this painting has been in the auction house S vault for over a year, and I've been blind to it all along. How shameful. Lulu was also somewhat impressed. Leaving aside knowledge and expertise in antiques, just this keen eye alone was worthy of respect. In the antique business, attention to detail is crucial. In today's world flooded with forgeries, even experts can slip up if they're not careful. Often, it's just one missed detail that gets you fooled. Lulu himself often went treasure hunting, but to be honest, real bargains were rare, and one careless mistake could cost him a lesson. That is why he still needed this stable job. Old Qi didn't live in the city, but in the suburbs. That area had a great environment, no industry, just a few villages around, and this villa district, a hillside villa area where all the villas were built along the slope. There are plenty of farmhouse restaurants around here. We could just book a table here later, Wang Jun said. He came here often, so he was familiar with the place. He knew exactly which farmhouse restaurant was authentic. With one phone call, he reserved a table. Whatever you arrange is fine, Brother Wang. Yang Yi said casually. Let's go in directly. Old Qi just got his hands on a painting by Zhang Daqian. What a coincidence. Wang Jun said with a smile. Miao Fei and Yang Yi also thought it was a coincidence. Just a few hours ago, they had run into old Qi. Wang Jun didn't know about that. Take a seat for a while. The old man is still in his study. An elderly woman greeted Yang Yi and the others. Wang Jun introduced her as old Qi's wife, and everyone exchanged pleasantries. They didn't have to wait long before old Qi emerged, looking energetic. It was clear that acquiring a painting by Zhang Daqian had put him in a great mood. You rascal, what's up? Why aren't you looking for Haowen? What brings you here for authentication? Old Qi said with a smile. In the past, this guy used to visit him often, but less so now because every time he brought a fake, old Qi would give him a lecture, probably found it too nagging. This remark left Wang Jun slightly embarrassed, and he quickly changed the subject. Old Chen might not be able to authenticate it, so I had to turn to you, sir. Oh, this immediately piqued old Qi's interest. We'd like to trouble you, senior. Miao Fei took out the scroll. Old Qi unrolled it skeptically, frowning slightly at first, but his years of experience and habits in appraising antiques compelled him to continue examining it. TSK. Not simple at all. Soon, old Qi broke into a smile. Where did this painting come from? He asked. This was a chance to shine in front of old Qi. So Lulu seized the opportunity and spoke. It goes back to last year. I never paid it much attention until this morning when Xiao Yang recognized its true nature. Yang Yi found it. Old Qi was taken aback for a moment, then smiled knowingly. It was a coincidence, Yang Yi said, a bit embarrassed since he had relied on a cheating device to show off. There's no such thing as coincidence. Without a sharp eye, you wouldn't pick up a treasure even if you saw it. Keep this earnest attitude, it will greatly benefit your future growth. Old Qi said to Yang Yi in a tone of an elder. As for the old man before him, Yang Yi respected him from the bottom of his heart, precisely because old Qi had always appreciated him so much. I will. Once before, I made a mistake in appraisal and almost ended up on the streets. I dare not be careless again. Hearing this, Miao Fei and the others were a bit surprised. Old Qi, on the other hand, nodded with a smile. Having gone through hardships often makes people more profound and helps them grow. It seemed that this young man, besides luck and sharp eyes, also had some experience. Old Qi, is this a painting by Zhang Daqian? That was still the question Wang Jun cared about most. No doubt about it. We're lucky today to see two paintings by Zhang Daqian. Yours is even more precious because Zhang Daqian even used paper and ink from Shi Tao's era. Old Qi sighed with admiration. Zhang Daqian truly deserved to be called one of the most outstanding modern painters. Especially when it came to copying masterpieces, he was truly unmatched. When is the auction? Old Qi suddenly asked. Miao Fei reacted quickly and immediately gave the date, warmly inviting Old Qi to attend. You're going too? Wang Jun said hesitantly. Can't I go? Old Qi countered. Forget I said anything. Wang Jun grumbled inwardly. If you go, will we even have a chance? As Miao Fei stepped up promotion, many antique enthusiasts from all over the country set out for Jiangzhou City. In particular, fans of Zhang Daqian's paintings, such as Elder Qi, were unwilling to miss the opportunity. Although many of Zhang Daqian's works have been passed down, even appearing among the public, in recent years, most pieces have either been collected by museums or stashed away by the ultra-rich and high-ranking officials, leaving fewer fine works in circulation. Without a doubt, this auction is basically a success, Miao Fei said with a smile. That day, she had Elder Qi estimate the value at auction. It should fetch around 50 million. However, Zhang Daqian's masterpieces have many enthusiasts, so once bidding begins, it's hard to say what the final price might be. This painting belonged to the auction house. Whatever price it fetched would be pure profit. Thus, the auction house's crisis was essentially resolved. With his tens of millions in development funds, Miao Fei could finally go all out. We owe this all to Yang Yi, so there will definitely be a bonus for him, she added. Actually, the one who deserves the most credit is General Manager Lin, who stumbled upon a fine piece by sheer luck. Hearing Yang Yi's words, Miao Fei smiled knowingly. General Manager Lin was her uncle. That bastard had run the auction house and is such a mess, leaving her a shambles. But fortunately, as Yang Yi said, by sheer accident, he had done a good deed. She knew full well that when her uncle learned he had personally brought back an antique worth tens of millions, yet no one at the auction house recognized its value, and it was left to rot in the warehouse without him getting any benefit, he was utterly heartbroken and couldn't sleep a whole night. Of course, this was all told to her by her aunt. After all, that uncle of hers still lacked vision. If he had recognized Yang Yi's talent early on, would things have turned out that way? Thinking about this, Miao Fei even felt a little proud of herself. No matter what others said, she believed that she had single-handedly turned the auction house around. First, she had uncovered a talent like Yang Yi, and then everything else fell into place. For the next 2 or 3 days, Yang Yi kept a low profile, spending most of his time reading books. Although the third eye was powerful, he believed it was better to learn more. Relying too much on the third eye, if it disappeared one day, he would revert to his original state. Just thinking about that possibility sent chills down his spine. Because of the third eye, Yang Yi's memory had greatly improved. Saying he had a photographic memory was a bit of an exaggeration, but he could remember 9 out of 10 things, which he found amazing. However, antiques were vast and profound, spanning thousands of years of Chinese civilization and touching on every aspect. This made Yang Yi feel like he was struggling in an ocean. Seizing the chance during these 2 free days, Yang Yi informed President Miao and found a nicer place to stay. He moved out of the urban village, where sunlight never reached throughout the year, and found an apartment in a conveniently located neighborhood. He rented a 2-bedroom, 1 living room unit, costing nearly 3,000 per month. Just as he was finishing up some trivial matters, he received a call from a classmate, one of his college roommates. Since his time in college wasn't that long, his only close friends were the guy who slept in the bunk above him. After being dismissed from school back then, the two had kept in touch. He heard that after graduation, the guy worked at a furniture company with a decent salary. "Are you free? Let me treat you to a meal," Yin Jinghui said. "Sure, We haven't seen each other for almost 2 months. They agreed to meet at a location on a pedestrian street near the school. Yin Jinghui lived not far away and said he would arrive early to save seats. Saying save seats, it also involved ordering food and such. In these recent gatherings, it was basically that guy who picked up the tab. Returning to the familiar streets, he felt a mix of emotions. Arriving at the old classmates' gathering restaurant, he indeed found that guy already there. To Yang Yi's surprise, sitting beside him was a woman. Finally in a relationship again, Yang Yi told. In the first year of college, this guy had already hooked up with a pretty girl from a neighboring class. At that time, as a class leader and quite handsome, picking up girls was indeed easy. However, as graduation neared, they worked in different cities, contact grew less, and it gradually led to a breakup. After being down for over a year, Yang Yi had thought he was too crushed to bounce back. That was quick. Yang Yi's words carried two meanings, and Yin Jinghui caught on, offering an awkward smile. Come, have a seat. This is my girlfriend Xiao Wei, and this is my dorm buddy Yang Yi. They introduced each other, and with Yin Jinghui around, the atmosphere didn't become awkward. After chatting for a bit, Yang Yi realized that Xiao Wei was a rather introverted girl, and, to his surprise, also a junior from their school. Damn, you came back to your own school to hit on a junior, and you've already graduated. No wonder they say, beware of fire, theft, and senior students. Even after graduation, you still couldn't be guarded against. She's interning now, handling some financial work, Yin Jinghui said. Xiao Wei was just 1 year below him, but interns have no rights. Being naturally introverted, she was easily bullied and had called Yin Jinghui crying several times. When are you two getting married? Yang Yi asked curiously. Perhaps the only college classmate Yang Yi cared about was this guy, Yin Jinghui. The other two dorm mates hadn't been in touch since Yang Yi dropped out. He had sent them messages, but they never replied. Get your red envelope ready. Yin Jinghui joked back. Actually, it won't happen that soon. His career isn't stable yet, and Xiao Wei has just entered society. Starting a family together would still be a bit difficult. Besides, Xiao Wei's family isn't entirely satisfied with Yin Jinghui. Right now his salary isn't that high. To help his son settle down as soon as possible, Yin Jinghui's father threw in all his savings, even digging into his emergency fund and borrowing a bit extra to secure a down payment on an apartment near the outskirts of Jiangzhou City. Don't worry, it's definitely not small. Ah, that's good. Enough about me, what about you? How come you're still single all these years? Xiao Wei has a few classmates we should grab a meal together sometime and get to know each other. Yin Jinghui changed the subject. I'm used to being alone. Yang Yi smiled where ye elye. They chatted while eating, but before they finished, Yin Jinghui's phone rang. So annoying, can't even get a break on weekends. Yin Jinghui grumbled, thinking it was a client. But when he checked, it turned out to be his father calling. Soon, his expression turned grim. There was a problem with that house. When we paid the down payment, hadn't we already settled everything? Now, they're trying to squeeze extra money from us. Urgent matter? Yang Yi could tell from his expression that this meal was over. Yin Jinghui nodded slightly. A few days ago, my old man bought a house not far from here. Now there's some trouble. Let's go take a look together. This wasn't the first time Yang Yi had met Yin Jinghui's father. He was a somewhat old-fashioned middle-aged man. From what Yin Jinghui had said, both his parents were teachers. When they arrived, Yin Jinghui's father was arguing fiercely with the sales staff. Hello, uncle. Xiao Hui and Yang Yi both greeted him. Seeing his future daughter-in-law, Uncle Yan's expression relaxed a bit, and he forced a faint smile. Dad, this is my college classmate. Remember? The one who slept on the bunk above me, Yin Jinghui said. When school started, Yin Jinghui's father had personally taken his son to the dorm, helped clean up, and even treated everyone to a meal. Uncle Yin glanced at Yang Yi with a hint of surprise, not remembering him well, but still smiled at him and said, I do recall that out of the 4 in the dorm, you seem to be the only one who reported to school alone, right? You have a good memory, uncle. Yang Yi threw in a little flattery. After learning more, Yang Yi found out that when the contract for this house was signed and the down payment made, it clearly stated that it would be a fully decorated unit. But now that renovation costs had risen, the real estate company was demanding an extra 20,000 yuan. Even if this goes to court, we'd be in the right. Uncle Yin said loudly. The contract is signed, so shouldn't your company bear that responsibility? Yang Yi timed in. Nowadays, real estate developers were nothing but bloodsuckers, eager to squeeze every last drop out of ordinary people. However, the sales staff kept claiming that it was only a temporary contract. If they didn't pay the extra amount, they would have to cancel the contract, and the down payment would be fully refunded.